I want to make sure that I don't come across like I'm the victim, because we have two victims here. And the second thing is that all of what happened on that day leading up to this event was precipitated on one idea, and that is that Halyna and I had something profound in common. And that is, we both assumed the gun was empty.
Your emotions are so clearly so right there on the surface. You felt shock. You felt anger. You felt sadness. Do you feel guilt?
No. I feel that there is, I feel that someone is responsible for what happened, and I can't say who that is, but I know it's not me.
You are listening to the Roberta Glass True Crime Report, putting the true back in true crime. From New York City, Roberta Glass is now on the record.
Okay. How is everybody? Wanted to talk to you today about Alec Baldwin and really his timeline of terror. And as we're watching the Alec Baldwin trial, give a little background as to why I feel that this Alec Baldwin has always been a loose cannon, and why I feel that Alec Baldwin was in a fantasy. That lots of his crew had walked off the set the day before. He was pointing the gun when he didn't need to point the gun, cocking the gun and pulling the trigger into a crowd of his crew, which killed Halyna Hutchins, the photographer, and wounded Joel Souza. So that is not surprising to me that this happened. I think if you said who on a list of actors would accidentally kill someone, and it seems like if you watch the opening there, this is something that Alec Baldwin talked about on Twitter. I wonder what it would feel like to accidentally kill someone. And think about, even if he weren't using his prop gun, even if he was using his finger, what would he be doing, right? You're in a fantasy. Even his lawyer, even the prosecutor saying, and his own lawyer is saying he was method acting. He was Harlan Rust. He was shooting everyone in sight. He didn't know that he wasn't cornered. He was out of reality almost in the opening. It was so absurd. But even the prosecutor was saying, look, he was play acting. There was no need. It was typical Alec Baldwin behavior. Every time he feels small, powerless, slighted, he's going to act out aggressively. And that's what I aim to prove. I've done a previous video on his history of flip outs and freakouts, but boy, did I not cover all of it. And this is just some of it. And I will get through what I can get through today. Obviously, like I said, I've been losing my voice, big deal. I'll try to get through what I can. But I think a good place to start is with his voicemail to his daughter. So let's watch that or listen to that together, shall we? And he was, at this time, accusing, even wrote a book on fatherhood. He was accusing Kim Basinger, Ireland's mother, and his ex-wife of parental alienation, which is a serious accusation. So, meaning my daughter doesn't like me, and it's Kim Basinger's fault for turning her against me. Not that I leave voice messages like this.
Let's listen to it together.
Judy, I want to tell you something, okay? And I want to leave a message for you right now, because again, it's 10:30 here in New York on a Wednesday, and once again, I've made an ass of myself trying to get you a phone to call you at a specific time. When the time comes for me to make the phone call, I stop whatever I'm doing, and I go and I make that phone call at 11 o'clock in the morning in New York, and if you don't pick up the phone, at 10 o'clock at night. And you don't.
See, right? So he feels disrespected. I made an ass out of myself. I feel small. I put myself out, and you didn't even honor me by picking up the phone call. Put myself out to time this phone call perfectly, and you don't even pick up. I'm so unimportant to you. I feel ridiculous, insignificant, small. And this is how he lashes out in typical Alec Baldwin style.
Don't even have that goddamn phone turned on. I want you to know something, okay? I'm tired of playing this game with you. I'm leaving this message with you to tell you, you have insulted me for the last time. You have insulted me. You don't have the brains or the decency as a human being. I don't give a damn that you're 12 years old or 11 years old, or that you're a child, or that your mother is a thoughtless pain in the ass who doesn't care about what you do as far as I'm concerned. You have humiliated me for the last time with this phone. And when I come out there next week, I'm going to fly out there for the day just to straighten you out on this issue. I'm going to let you know just how disappointed in you I am.
Right, so he's threatening her. I'm going to let you know how disappointed I am. How I mean, if Ireland didn't get the message verbally, how is he's going to show her physically? That's what it sounds like, doesn't it? And I love how he blames Kim Basinger. Your mother lets you do whatever you want, and that's why. So it's almost like a cope there. It's not that my daughter really doesn't like me and doesn't make time for me. It's that she's been either brainwashed by my horrible ex-wife, or she's been spoiled by my horrible ex-wife. And I love the part where he goes, I don't care that you're 11 years old or 12 years old or a child. You can almost see him doing air quotes there. A child. I'm gonna go mano a mano with you, right? Mano a mano, right with you? That's what it sounds like, doesn't it?
And how angry I am with you that you've done this to me again. You've made me feel like shit, and you've made me feel like a fool over and over and over again. And this crap you pull on me with this goddamn phone situation that you would never dream of doing to your mother, and you do it to me constantly and over again. I am going to get on a plane, and I'm going to come out there for the day, and I'm going to straighten your ass out when I see you. Do you understand me? I'm going to really make sure you get it. Then I'm going to get on a plane, I'm going to turn around, and I'm going to come home. So you better be ready Friday, the 20th, to meet with me. So I'm going to let you know just how I feel about what a rude little pig you really are. You are a rude, thoughtless little pig, okay? To replay this.
Right, a little projection there, don't you think? A little Alec Baldwin super projection there. If anyone's rude and pig-like, it's Alec Baldwin, but okay. And I think it's a good place. Leo Substack did an exhaustive, he calls it the terror timeline, and I borrowed that from him of Alec Baldwin. And I won't read all of it. The link is in this episode's description if you want to read all of it. It will take an hour and 12 minutes. That's how long this timeline of terror of Alec Baldwin's is. But I will highlight some of it. And I think it's really interesting that it also hints, what this also hints at is how Alec Baldwin was really an A-list actor and really ruined his own reputation by insulting studio heads. You don't do that as an actor. You're really rely on them for work. To get in a hit movie is such a, I guess, Yiddish mitzvah, right? A lucky accident that you don't want to ruin it by, even if you feel that way about studio head or a producer, you don't insult them. So the opening, Leo talks about, his name is Leo Helmar, talks about how he couldn't even find all of it. A lot of it is lost to the internet. There's so much Alec Baldwin, but he was very interested in Alec Baldwin's custody battle with Kim Basinger and his allegations of parental alienation against Kim Basinger, and even writing a book. And it's super interesting who he goes to and in his book for legal advice. So stay tuned for that. So it starts in 1991, where Alec Baldwin gets a zoning clearance to put up a second story on his home in Amagansett in Long Island. And we'll take a look at the home he's selling, that he's just knocked down the price for $10 million, which this is like super hot property. I can't believe nobody wants it because it's Alec Baldwin's house. It just may be overpriced. I don't know what kind of shape it's in. I would love to live there if I were super rich, but okay. His neighbors weren't happy and appealed the zoning board ruling. This is in 1991. I'm exhausted just thinking about his dust up with a zoning board. In February of 1991, Premiere Magazine chronicled the discord on the set of The Marrying Man for the young people in the audience, a big flop that he did with his wife, Kim Basinger. The article starts with an anecdote of Alec freaking out because his phone wasn't working on set. A Disney exec was using a cell phone nearby. Baldwin grabbed the phone and chucked it on the ground and stormed off. Remember, this was in 1991. So it wasn't like cell phones were a small or cheap thing back then. Alec also kicked over a case full of camera lenses because he's a rude little pig, right? The studio was contemplating legal actions based on the damage to property and delays. The story about Baldwin and Basinger are almost unbelievable. Basinger wanted to travel to Brazil to consult a psychic, for example. I can't blame her. She was probably looking for mystical, magical powers to deal with Alec Baldwin. I can't fault her for that. And the studio told her she would have to pay $85,000 a day that it would cost to delay the filming. She and Baldwin, who by this time had moved in together, became unmanageable. Baldwin, in a tantrum, threw a chair and almost hit a crew member. Baldwin also punched his trailer, so a trailer's like a trailer that actors have to, it's like a little home in between shots. He punched his trailer, creating a dent in the size of a bread box. The production was a stressful cluster F. By the end of the filming, the director came down with 105-degree fever and took weeks to recover. And in May 14th, Baldwin blasts Disney for The Marrying Man, saying the film looked cheap. So it wasn't that he took a bad script or was involved in a bad project. It's everyone else's fault. And that's a theme that goes all the way to now, where he's saying, look, I would never point a gun. It's the gun that's defective. And, new gun rules. I have new gun rules. You never point a gun at anyone unless you know it's empty. He's actually been quoted saying that. I'm sure Alec never ended up regretting trashing one of the most powerful. He called Jeffrey Katzenberg the eighth dwarf and greedy. And Katzenberg called both Baldwin and Basinger irresponsible. Not only does Baldwin in May of 91 blast Katzenberg, the head of Disney, in the full text of his interview in Entertainment Weekly, but he also trashed Pulitzer Prize winner playwright Neil Simon as being as deep as a bottle cap. Baldwin talks at length about how Disney strip mined the crap, my word not his, out of the legacy as a studio. Baldwin also said that this would be the last interview he gives. If only he stuck by that. Baldwin is nothing but, if not consistent, in stepping on the same rake repeatedly. Baldwin also had further words about Katzenberg, calling the power broker a short, bald, uppity, greedy megalomaniac. That's a little bit of projection, although I'm not sure. I think I stood next to Alec Baldwin at the opera because he's the voice of the Metropolitan Opera. And I think he's like a little under 6 feet. So maybe he's not short, but uppity, greedy, and megalomaniac maybe maybe apply here. He admitted he was so frustrated on the set of The Merry Man that he punched holes in the walls. Baldwin went on to compare the alleged misinformation campaign waged by Disney in the wake of the film to Hitler's Big Lie. And he also loves to compare things to SA, it rhymes with grape, all the time. I'm sure Jeffrey Katzenberg wasn't offended by that comparison. In September of 91, Baldwin's dropped from Patriot Games, and he would never reprise his role for the Tom Clancy series. And in June of 92, Baldwin apologizes for calling the driver of a horse-drawn carriage a gay slur the week before. Baldwin hurled the invective at the man during a city council meeting about whether to allow carriages in Central Park. Baldwin objected to on the basis of animal rights. We still have carriages going in Central Park, but it's a constant. I will tell you, someone who lives in New York City, Manhattan, it's like a constant battle and hot topic here. In September, Baldwin exploded after asking for a pair of tickets to be left for his friend as a Broadway performance at Streetcar Named Desire. Tickets were sold out, and when Baldwin found out after the show, he freaked out and trashed his dressing room. I remember that. And in February of 1994, a profile of Alec Baldwin appeared in Esquire, and the piece detailed his horrible behavior on the set of The Merry Man and said the film is a grim foreshadowing, was a colossal flop and PR nightmare. And it talks about Baldwin smashing cellular phone walls and director's chairs. So stuff we've heard about before. And he gets into a lawsuit. The article also recounts Kim Bassinger's loss in the boxing Halyna lawsuit, which I delve into a section recounting Baldwin's book on his divorce. I think that we can skip that. Baldwin trashes, this is still 1994, Senator Al D'Amato, calling him the bozo pool attendant from Island Park and wishing that D'Amato would get into a serious ski accident with a large tree. So again, he's wishing serious bodily harm or death on someone he doesn't like. And I believe that he resented Halyna Hutchins for having power and pull on the set, if not for other reasons. And that was why she may have been the aim of his fantasy gunplay. A tabloid bonanza when D'Amato did get a ski. Baldwin's ugly quote became a tabloid bonanza when D'Amato did get into a ski accident in Park City, breaking his shoulder into 3 places. That must have made Alec Baldwin feel so powerful. And in 1995, Baldwin hit a cameraman who was recording Baldwin's wife and child. This is really famous. Alan Zanger was the photographer and said Baldwin approached him and began arguing with him and then punched him in the nose. And this is the first assault on a photographer. In 96, Baldwin was involved with a Hampton local in a feud that took place in the letters to the editor section of the Hampton Eastern Star paper. Adeo labeled Baldwin as one of Hollywood's 10 biggest perverts and challenged Baldwin to a charity boxing match. And in March 26, Baldwin is acquitted of battery in a trial where he's accused of hitting photographer Alan Zanger. And this didn't stop him. Just recently, I played where he's calling paparazzis homophobic slurs, racial slurs. So this behavior didn't stop. The article was interesting to me, especially after spending a good time looking to the trial of his stalker or alleged stalker. She was a convicted stalker, Genevieve Sabaroun. Her YouTube videos are wild. I have to do she's absolutely nuts. And her thinking is so disorganized. A woman Baldwin accused of stalking him. Sabaroun was convicted of stalking Baldwin in 2013. What tied the two cases together in my mind was Baldwin's seemingly willingness to embellish facts in a courtroom. In the trial involving the photographer Zanger, there was a videotape of Baldwin spraying shaving cream on the paparazzi car window, but there wasn't a tape of Baldwin hitting the guy. Baldwin called Zanger a stalkerazzi. There was audio of Baldwin calling the cops after allegedly hitting Zanger. And Baldwin told the police he was afraid his child was going to be kidnapped. Come on. And that's also, this would be a good time to also look at Alec Baldwin's interview on the side of the road in Vermont. Because at the beginning of that interview, Hilaria and Alec both say, you're making my kids cry. It's so terrible. We're going to have a car crash. And I love their, hold on 1 second. Let me share it with you guys. And rest my voice for a second.
What's the current state of what's going on with the case?
I'm not allowed to make any comments because it's an ongoing investigation. I've been ordered by the sheriff's department in Santa Fe. I can't answer any questions about the investigation. I can't. Okay. It's an active investigation in terms of a woman dying. She was my friend. The day I arrived in Santa Fe to start shooting, I took her to dinner with Joel, the director. We were a very, very, well-oiled crew shooting a film together, and then this horrible event happened. Now, I've been told multiple times, don't make any comments about the ongoing investigation, and I can't. I can't
until I have my interview with George Stephanopoulos where I describe everything.
I can't. That's it.
And you met
with... What are the questions that you have other than that?
You met with I forget her name in the moment, but you met with her family in the day.
Yes, her name is Halyna. If you're spending this much time waiting for us, you should know her name. Her name is Halyna.
Halyna Hutchins. I met with her husband Matthew and her son. Yeah, that's right.
And how did that meeting go?
I wouldn't know how to characterize that. They're mortified.
You guys, you know what? No details.
But do me a favor. I'm gonna answer the question.
Well, I appreciate that he was probably very upset.
The guy is...
The guy is out of his mind. But isn't that funny? Doesn't this marriage seem like two flowers and no gardener? They both want to be center stage. It's just a recipe for disaster. But when I enjoy watching, although she seems to mother him a bit, which is odd. In court, she's twirling her fingers, telling him to turn around and not look at her, and putting her hand over her heart. We'll look at that in a second. Very odd behavior, and insensitively flashing his child before the jury. We'll get through all of this.
It's overwhelmed with grief. This is something that there are incidental accidents on film sets from time to time, but nothing like this. This is a 1 in a trillion episode. It's a 1 in a trillion event. And so he is in shock. He has a 9-year-old son. We are, in constant contact with him because we're very worried about his family and his kid. And as I said, we're eagerly awaiting for the sheriff's department to tell us what their investigation has yielded. What else do you have?
Would you ever work on another film set that involves
Remember, he couldn't talk in the beginning of this interview until he can talk, right?
firearms of that nature?
I couldn't answer that question. I really don't have any. I have no sense of that at all. I do know that an ongoing effort to limit the use of firearms on film sets is something I'm extremely interested in. I don't know where but remember something that I think is important, and that is how many bullets have been fired in films and TV shows in the last 75 years. This is America. How many bullets have gone off in movies and on TV sets before? How many billions in the last 75 years? And nearly all of it without incident. So what has to happen now is we have to realize that when it does go wrong, and it's this horrible, catastrophic thing, some new measures have to take place. Rubber guns.
Right. But how, when you fire inexperienced people, when you rush the crew, when you have a environment of lax safety, of being lax on safety, then it makes it infinitely more likely, Alec, that something will happen. It's like saying, oh, I got into a fatal car crash. How many cars are driven without incident every day? And saying, look, Diane, I'm thinking of Diane Schuler drove drunk the wrong way, the highway in New York. What are the chances? He was so pointing his gun, shooting off rounds, cutting corners with safety, not paying attention, not following the rules of safety. That makes it infinitely more likely that something like this would happen.
Plastic guns, no real armaments on set. That's not for me to decide. It's urgent. It's urgent that you understand I'm not an expert in this field. So whatever other people decide is the best way to go in terms of protecting people's safety on film sets, I'm all in favor of, and I will cooperate with that in any way that I can.
Do you have any further projects in the works at the moment, or is everything on hold?
No, that's irrelevant to what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think production will start up again on
No, I doubt it. I sincerely doubt. Was there anything else?
Why Vermont?
Because
That's
we
no, that's a person. That's private. Yeah, that's private. Anything else? Okay, so just do me a favor, you don't mind? My kids are in the car crying.
Because you guys are following
And all I want to do, as a courtesy to you, I came to talk to you. I'm not allowed to comment on the investigation. I talk to the cops every.
She's still got the fake accent. Because you are following this. They're crying. Oh, give me a break. It's so wild. So let me try to speed through this. Baldwin was later found liable in a civil trial. Okay. So we're back to his trial he says the two cases of his Alec Baldwin's stalker and Alec Baldwin's criminal trial with Zanger are married in this writer's mind because there was a videotape of Baldwin spraying shaving cream. Baldwin called Zanger a stalkerazzi. There was audio of Baldwin calling the cops after allegedly hitting Zanger. Baldwin told the police he was afraid his child was going to be kidnapped. There was also a taped interview of Baldwin played at trial where he appeared to admit to hitting Zanger, but he claimed it was in self-defense. Baldwin was found liable in a civil trial and had to pay $4,500, a pittance. But he used his daughter as a shield and got away with it. You can see in that interview on the side of the road in Vermont, they're using their children the same way. Feature Baldwin, Baldwin writes a series of angry letters to the East Hampton Star in 1997. Baldwin had been complaining in letters section about sanitation workers, a local conservation man, and the town board. Has to do with, I think this goes back to his zoning issue. Baldwin and his associates in the Hamptons charged that there was a conservative conspiracy attacking Baldwin, and insults and accusations flew back and forth. Not quite the vast right-wing conspiracy that Hillary Clinton alleged was after Bill, but I guess we all have to start somewhere. Baldwin appears on Montel Williams. I thought this was super interesting. I almost want to skip this, but it's so interesting. As part of an advocacy group in 1998, in January 1998, he's representing a small group called Standing for Truth About Radiation, or STAR, as chronicled in an article in MIT Press and a book by Robert Creece. Baldwin is the leading celebrity spokesperson for STAR, which was protesting a non-existent threat of radiation poisoning from the Nobel Prize-winning Brookhaven National Laboratory. I thought that was really interesting. He appears on Conan O'Brien and says that Representative Henry Hyde should be stoned to death. Andrea Pizer in 1999 trashes Baldwin for trying to use his fame to get out of a $40 parking ticket. In 2000, Kim Basinger is quoted in a German magazine saying that she and Alec would leave the country if President George W. Bush was elected. When Bush won, Baldwin was inundated by emails and posts. I mean, this is very similar stuff that we see with celebrities nowadays. If so-and-so wins, I'm going to move to Canada. And they never do. I wish somebody would just once make good on their promise. It's so predictable. Kim Basinger splits from Alec Baldwin in 2001. Basinger's father spoke to the press and talked about how explosive Baldwin's anger was. Don Basinger also says Baldwin has a horrendous temper that too often was unleashed on Kim, even in front of their 5-year-old daughter, Ireland. Alec and his brother Billy attend a Knicks game and end up in an altercation with fans in the same year. In 2002, Baldwin compared the September 11 attacks to the results of the 2000 election. So this is when it's really raw. It's always raw, and it's always a source of sadness, and it's just a horror moment, probably one of the most horrific moments in American history. And he's comparing it to an election because his party member didn't win. Senator, I want to ask you, so let me just try to move forward, because insults 90% of America. He says the vast wasteland between New York and Los Angeles is flyover country, not leadership America. So they're not sophisticated. They're not in the elite. They're not part of the liberal elite. Really turning his nose at common people. And this will be really interesting to see how his high-powered New York lawyer is received by this salt of the earth New Mexico jury. Baldwin is on a panel in 2005 representing himself as an expert on the Nuremberg trials. I love when these celebrities are experts on things that they know little about. In 2006, the co-star of the play Entertaining Mr. Sloan by Joe Orton, Jan Maxwell, left the production because she claimed Baldwin threw objects because the air conditioner wasn't working and punched a hole in the wall. Do you guys see a pattern? And was an ass behind the scenes. Maxwell said she feared for her safety. And this author asks, who could blame her? This is so interesting. So many of these things have been lost and are really, I think, kind of fascinating. Kim Basinger filed a motion in their ugly custody case, asking the judge to declare Alec Baldwin a vectitious litigant. This is a classification of litigant who files pleadings designed to harass or otherwise waste the time and resources of a counterparty. This is also a Scientology technique. And later in this article, you'll see that Alec Baldwin has stood up for Tom Cruise and Scientology. So it's kind of interesting that he's using a Scientology tactic where they sue just so the suing is the punishment itself. It's part of what Scientologists call fair game practice. In 2006, there were a few references I saw in another piece. Baldwin goes into Prepare Yourself, a feud on the set of the movie with legendary costumer Patricia Fields. So Patricia Fields had a legendary store for club kids back in the days when New York really had a happening nightlife. And you could go, to so many different clubs, and you wanted outfits, outrageous outfits. And she had a whole wig section, and she's the legendary costume designer behind Sex and the City. And Baldwin referred to her, Patricia Fields, as a fruit salad head and a whack job 24/7. Baldwin gets in a shouting match with Sean Hannity, when Baldwin was trying out for a radio gig in 2006, and a caller on the show got Baldwin angry when he asked about Baldwin's ex-wife, Kim Basinger. 2006, same year, Baldwin said Alec Baldwin stiff-armed him as Baldwin was heading into a celeb hotspot. The Koi, a place like the Koi, is a well-known paparazzi zone where stars show up to be seen. So Baldwin's alleged assault is completely uncalled for. Not that it's ever okay to punch someone, but according to Anthony Goodrich, Alec Baldwin stiff-armed him, and that's photographer assault tally too. Baldwin referred to Gore's defeat as a gang grape. Okay, my words trying to be a little. And this is in September of that year. Baldwin defends Tom Cruise in Scientology, and he says, this is the quote in GQ. He's quoted as saying, "All I know is I don't see people who are disciples of Tom's faith driving planes into the World Trade Center. When Scientologists start crashing planes into the Pentagon, then I think we should sit Tom down and have a grand jury talk to him. In the meantime, let's just leave him alone." There are so many things wrong with this quote. It's screwed up to think that we should have to wait until a criminal organization blows up a building to look into their regular abuses. Exactly. Thank you to Leo Helmar for that. 2006, Baldwin was apparently perturbed by being inconvenienced by the tragedy. Baldwin appeared on Howard Stern and revealed he never wears condoms. And Gawker reports an incident in that same year where Baldwin was a jerk to a hostess in a restaurant. Baldwin was quoted as saying to the waitress or hostess, "I asked you a question in English and I would like an answer in English. Do you have a working phone in that room? That is outrageous. This is totally unacceptable." Okay. So and then we're now at 2007, and Baldwin's infamous "thoughtless little pig" voicemail. The voicemail is especially damning in light of Baldwin subsequently becoming involved in advocacy for the disputed parental alienation syndrome. It can't be his own personality and his own parenting techniques. The theory posits that one parent can brainwash a child to hate the other parent. It is common allegation in high conflict divorces. Supporters of this theory say a parent shouldn't talk poorly about their ex-partners. It would appear that Baldwin is at minimum a hypocrite in trying to paint Basinger as someone who has this alleged syndrome, which is not recognized by DSM. But that is recognized in some state courts. Baldwin calls Basinger a thoughtless pain in the ass who doesn't care about what you do in his voicemail. Okay, so in 2007, Baldwin's book on divorce, tentatively titled Life After Divorce, is announced, and the book is eventually released with the title A Promise to Ourselves. How pompous is that title? And in the book, Basinger also hired that same month 24-hour security for her daughter in the wake of Baldwin's voicemail scandal. And A Promise to Ourselves, the book came out a year later. Baldwin makes a huge deal out of dropping contempt charges before the leak of the voicemail. Okay. And I stood outside a restaurant on West 65th Street and thought about how I dropped the contempt charges. This is in his book, and how I tried to improve the situation by presenting a compromise. So Baldwin writes his own tome. It looks like he's writing his own tome in court to make himself look like the hero. A pal of Baldwin's fired back at Kim Basinger, saying that she had her own issues. A friend of Baldwin, totally not Baldwin himself or his PR flack, just happened to bring up almost word for word the same thing Baldwin said about Kim in his book. Baldwin's imaginary friend and Kim's only friends are people on her payroll. She's jealous of Alec. She's crazy. Roger over and Chief. Out, Chief. So it's such a thing that really narcissistic people use, calling people crazy. It's so dismissive. He dumped his CA rep. He calls into a local radio station in 2007 and complains about the Upper West Side being one of the dirtiest neighborhoods, which I think is funny. Obviously, this writer doesn't live here. He says it could be interpreted as having racial overtones. The Upper West Side is one of the whitest neighborhoods in Manhattan. I don't think it's that. It's just sort of disdain for a really well-moneyed, beautiful area of New York City. Alec is angry about the writer's strike, calling it an MF strike. Oh gosh, this is so long. This is great. So in the film What Just Happened debuted, and this is in the book that's based on the film, and I really enjoyed it. The film is based on a series. It was written by a movie producer, Art Linson. And in one scene, which was reproduced in the movie, Bruce Willis portrays an incident when Alec Baldwin showed up on the set of the movie The Edge with a giant beard. In the real life incident, Baldwin's beard created a production crisis. Weird how it seems like every movie Baldwin makes, he has problems. I guess we'll never know why. I unearthed a clip of the scene where Bruce plays Alec. It's hilarious, the whole movie. I really enjoyed, like I said before. He picks a fight with Greg Garcia, the creator of My Name is Earl, and accused Garcia of being a Scientologist in 2008. So he's having beefs with people left and right. He's living single and alone in 2008. Okay, hold on. In 2008, Baldwin attacks Harvey Levin, saying Levin, seemed to derive a perverse pleasure from messing with his life. And then we get to his book, A Promise to Ourselves. And I'm going to just take a quick break, rest my voice. When we come back, we're going to see, where does he go to? What kind of lawyers does he go to or says he goes to in his book, giving his book about divorce? I mean, who would go to Alec Baldwin for advice? It's kind of hilarious. But when I come back, we're going to talk about it. Stay tuned. I'll be back in 36 seconds. Don't go anywhere. If you are enjoying this episode of my True Crime Report, please hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and share this episode. Get access to exclusive podcasts and other bonus content by becoming a patron today. If you have a question or comment for me, shoot me a super chat and I'll do my best to answer it and read it on air. Thanks so much. Now back to the show. Okay, so we left on a cliffhanger. So I thought this was super interesting in his book. These are all the chapters: parental alienation, London, not the sharpest knife. But in chapter 10, it's about his custody trial. And he goes to Howard Weitzman, who was O.J. Simpson's personal attorney and the original lawyer in the 1994 double murder trial. And this writer sees a connection from O.J. to Alec Baldwin. And I think it's particularly interesting to me because the Innocence Project was birthed out of the O.J. Simpson case. The co-creator of the Innocence Project, Barry Scheck, got the inspiration, realized nobody knew anything about DNA, in my opinion, and started the Innocence Project, co-started it, and that really ramped up what we know as what I would call the wrongful conviction movement or innocence fraud. And I think it's particularly interesting that he goes right to Howard Weitzman. I find it super interesting. So I'm going to skip all these parts of his book. In 2010, let's go back. Baldwin was taken to the hospital after he got in a fight with his then 14-year-old daughter in Ireland and threatened to take some pills. This was after he had a run-in with a photographer for the billionth time outside his building in New York City. According to media reports, Baldwin was unresponsive. Baldwin's spokesperson later claimed he was fine. So what a manipulative thing to do in front of a child. Say, it's a way to gain power and control. Guns are also another way. Say pointing a gun at someone to gain power and control. Also using physical force, another way to gain power and control. Or verbal abuse, another way to gain power and control over someone. There's a theme here. Baldwin in 2010 called Mike Walker, used to call into the Howard Stern show for all the Stern fans out there, a whore and a queen, because Mike Walker reported that Baldwin screamed at Tina Fey on the set of 30 Rock. In 2010, Baldwin talks about how he has a great ass and would love to remarry. Baldwin calls a Starbucks barista an uptight queen with an attitude problem in 2011. And I didn't know this. And in 2011, Baldwin joined Occupy Wall Street protests for a couple hours. Which is like, you start first. You divest your funds first, Alec. Another thing I have noticed in chronicling Baldwin's foibles is that he's really a real trend hopper. And he's jumped on so many innocence fraud campaigns. Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey, Teresa Hallback's killer, those two. Mumia Abu Jamal's, Officer Daniel Faulkner's killer, and Adnan Syed's innocence fraud campaign, Heyman Lee's killer. So I think it's super interesting that he used O.J. Simpson's lawyer, and he's very trendy. He doesn't seem to think deeply about the charities he champions. If they sound good, he'll go behind them. And I think that there's a deep affinity with convicted killers that he has. He complains about the flying after 9/11. He calls the Westboro Baptist Church leader Fred Phelps a closet queen, scallywag. Baldwin called Harvey Weinstein a douchebag in a rant. This may be his only, maybe he was ahead of his time here. Maybe if only he actually spoke out, and then instead of just insulting him. And Baldwin was making, Weinstein declined to participate in a documentary. Oh, so it's not for the reasons we would think. The reason he called them a douchebag is because Weinstein declined to participate in a documentary Baldwin was making with James Toback. Isn't it odd in retrospect that Baldwin is so close to so many of the worst in Hollywood? I mean, he's very close with Woody Allen. Add Woody Allen and Tom Cruise and a bunch of other creeps that Baldwin loves to defend. And he also defends killers, convicted killers. And fights for their release, has people who are lying for them on his podcast. That's my opinion. He gets into another incident with a photographer in 2012. And I think this might be a good time to watch Baldwin's incident. This was reported on CNN with a paparazzi where Alec Baldwin pins him against a car. Let's take a look, shall we?
An alleged hostile scuffle caught on camera as Alec Baldwin, well known for his distaste of the paparazzi, propels a photographer on top of a parked car. Just days earlier, the 30 Rock star was snapped arriving at his New York apartment with wife Ilaria carrying his newborn baby girl. These new photos appear to show the angry actor pinning a photographer's arms behind his back.
You look fabulous.
Both Baldwin and the photog called 911. The star stated he was walking with his wife when the paparazzo got too close. Both parties aren't pressing charges.
You could probably blame the paparazzi. They're usually at fault. They usually get too close. But the problem is we've seen this time and again with Alec Baldwin.
Back in February, according to the New York Post, a reporter was trying to get a comment on a lawsuit involving wife Ilaria. The Post reports Baldwin became aggressive, grabbing the reporter by the arm, allegedly calling him a crackhead and a racially derogatory word. And this photo, published in the Daily News, was taken when Baldwin went to apply for his marriage license last June. He accused the photographer of bumping him with his lens. In a recent red carpet appearance, Baldwin addressed the shutterbugs.
Most of the paparazzi have their foot out to trip you. They want you to fall on the ground and they want to get that shot.
Now, a couple things here. Alec does say the paparazzi gets too close. That's something we've heard other celebrities complain about. Recently, Halle Berry and Jennifer Garner testifying in front of the California Assembly to get stricter laws protecting their children from photographers. Also, Alec does seem to get a little bit of a pass in these situations when we would be maybe more critical of other celebrities. Remember when Justin Bieber had a run-in with the paparazzi not too long ago? The questions seem more like, look at Bieber's temper, not look at what the photographers were doing.
Check this out. Isn't this interesting? So he said that they got too close. This is the same thing he said about this woman, paparazzi later. He said, "Oh, you almost knocked my wife's teeth out, almost." And she's like, "I'm not going to apologize." And this is crazy.
Another Alec Baldwin meltdown just one day after using a gay slur when cursing out a photographer.
Yeah, the actor sets his sights on a local TV reporter who apparently once had a run-in with Baldwin's wife. ABC's Rob Nelson is here to sort it all out. Sort it if you can, Rob.
Oh, yeah, it's a mess as always, isn't it, with Mr. Baldwin? Yeah, this is a very interesting story here. Alec Baldwin having a run-in with the press is certainly not a new headline. But what is different this time around is the reason behind the drama, a fender bender on a city street, and now even the temporary suspension of Baldwin's cable news show.
Get the out of here.
Nothing wrong.
Taking his public blowouts with the press to a whole new level. Trying to get into his car outside his New York apartment on Friday with his wife and 3-month-old baby, the famously hot-tempered actor got in the face of a female New York TV reporter whom his wife says hit her in the face with a microphone a day earlier.
You're the one that almost hit my wife with the microphone in the face?
Right. See how it's hit her in the face or almost hit her in the face? Which is it? Which is it? So interesting, right?
I asked you a question. You want to apologize to her? I asked you a question.
Still fuming, Baldwin brings over nearby cops, demanding they take action.
I do want to press charges against her. She assaulted my wife.
The ruckus didn't stop there, as Baldwin then bangs into another car as he tries to leave his parking spot.
Johnny, it's your car.
Friday's blow-up is just the latest in a string of caught-on-camera tirades by one of Hollywood's most notorious hotheads.
I would really love to know where he was covered in a full. That is Alec Baldwin covered in a full white sheet. If anyone has any information, my email address is always public in the about section of this. Send it to me. I just haven't been able to find any information about that. Let me know what that was about.
My wife and the baby with the camera.
On Thursday, Baldwin caused an uproar by allegedly using an anti-gay slur against a photographer.
Come on!
Which Baldwin denies, saying he was misheard. A Twitter firestorm erupted, with gay activist groups and even CNN's Anderson Cooper chiming in. Cooper tweeted, "Wow, Alec Baldwin shows his true colors yet again. How is he going to lie and excuse his anti-gay slurs this time?"
Right. He did it the same way. He just says he didn't do it. Just like he didn't press the trigger and then he would never fire into a group of people. It's the same thing. It's just a pattern. So I just wanted to show you that. I thought it was pretty
Baldwin
interesting.
later
They got too close. They're around their kids. He'll use his kids. And Tracy Morgan commented in 2013 and said Alec Baldwin should apologize if he said the racist slur that he was alleged to a couple days before. Alec refused to back down and denied the claim. And maybe Alec heard bigoted insults at the other 20 photographers he assaulted over the years, but I do think he did it again. It sounds pretty far-fetched to me, but you'd be the judge. And in 2013, Baldwin and Shia LaBeouf were involved in an ugly feud in a play, and Baldwin told the director either he or LaBeouf, Shia LaBeouf, I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce his name, had to go. It's been so long since he's been relevant. This was over a dispute that the two actors had because Baldwin did not memorize his lines, and Shia became frustrated. Shia LaBeouf was accused of plagiarizing his apology after he was fired. This is one of the sillier fracases of Baldwin's career, but certainly fits the pattern of Baldwin being a prickly a-hole. TMZ called Baldwin a liar after Baldwin tried to wiggle out of another ugly incident. Baldwin called a reporter a toxic little queen and encouraged his followers to harass the reporter. Baldwin tried to say it wasn't a homophobic comment after the conflict started on Twitter and escalated to a phone call. Baldwin attacked a paparazzi in New York City, and both parties called the cops. Ultimately, no charges were filed. And again, Baldwin claimed to be protecting his wife, who had recently given birth. I'm not sure how it makes sense to protect your baby by getting into a dangerous confrontation in front of witnesses, but what do I know? Says Leo Substack. The photographer assault tally 7. Baldwin writes an angry letter to East Hampton Star talking about gypsy cabs bringing massive hordes of unwashed revelers. So there's like this theme of him being better than everyone else, that anyone who doesn't live in New York or Los Angeles is in flyover countries, not important. The Upper West Side is dirty and terrible, and it's kind of everything's better. If the restaurant that he's in doesn't have a telephone in the room that he wants, it's outrageous and terrible. If it's almost like a man baby, if his demands aren't met at all times, he's almost like a king complex, and everybody's sort of his subjects. Baldwin gives a performance of his career and sobs on the stand in his trial against his alleged stalker. The TMZ article even mentions some specters in the courtroom felt it was not authentic. And part of the stalker story that I don't believe personally, this is just my personal belief, is that he didn't sleep with this woman. I think he slept with her and maybe found out she was crazy, and I believe she did stalk him. But you never know with Alec Baldwin if, he's cried wolf so many times about alleged slights. It's hard to know. But it's just my observations from looking at the videos of the convicted stalker, her videos. Her thinking appears extremely disorganized. It's super hard to follow what she's saying. I certainly wanted to believe her because I dislike Alec Baldwin so much, but in this case, I wouldn't put it past Alec Baldwin. He said, I never slept with her. She just got the idea that they were in a relationship, which some stalkers do. But in this one, I don't know. I don't know. She was awfully close to him. Alec Baldwin chases down a photographer and hurls gay insults at him. And that's number 8. Again, how many? And in 13, he threatens a local reporter and hurls insults at him. That's 9. Smacks a camera out of a photographer's hand after pushing the photographer and lunging at him like a foaming at the mouth psycho, excuse me. Baldwin again uses his go-to excuse that the photographer attempted to hit him with a camera, right? It's always like, they're hitting me with a camera, they're hitting my wife's teeth, they're getting too close, they're trying to hurt my kids, and then threatens the man, telling him, you take a walk, you don't want to get hurt, do you? And the November 15th, 2013, this writer says, will be a day that will live in infamy as Alec Baldwin becomes a rolling meltdown in the wake of the trial of his alleged stalker. And, well, now she's a convicted stalker, and his multiple run-ins with reporters and photographers. Baldwin summons a gay friend hairdresser to make a statement on his behalf as they stand next to each other, awkwardly on camera. Baldwin tells the assembled press that he is a gay friend card, whatever that means. Yuck. Baldwin gets into a third angry confrontation of the day. He was recorded screaming at a woman reporter and demanding that she be arrested. We just watched that. Okay, let me move forward to something that this Baldwin pens an absolutely wild letter, open letter to the public announcing his departure from public life in February of 2014. If only he had stuck by that. I can't believe I've never heard of this one because it's such a crazy ride. Baldwin also makes some more incredibly offensive comments about trans people in a piece that he's trying to defend himself over accusations of using gay slurs. One young man, an F to M tranny, said, "Are you here to get dry cleaned like Brett Ratner?" Meaning, I do some mea culpas, write a 6-figure check, go to dinner and sob at the table, give a heartfelt speech, beg for forgiveness. I thought to myself, beg for forgiveness for something I didn't do. Right? He never takes responsibility for everything. He's always falsely accused. Didn't do it, even if it's recorded on film. But here's something that didn't, let me share this. In September of that same year, 2014, Baldwin had a angry outburst in the Hamptons. So what I'm saying is that this writer collected almost every Alec Baldwin incident of aggressive behavior, and he missed one. I mean, that's how many there are. I mean, he went into the Wayback Machine, read his book. I mean, and he's still missing one. Alec Baldwin's angry outburst in the Hamptons. Cops are required backup to cool him down. Alec Baldwin is at it once again, causing a disturbance Sunday during a walk in the Hamptons. A close friend of Baldwin's gave TMZ the scoop, saying, "Okay, can anyone guess what happened?" Alec Baldwin was in the park with his wife, Hilaria. Gosh, they've been together 10 years. It's amazing. And their baby was a paparazzo. And their baby, when a paparazzo approached them, according to the friend, Baldwin has some history with the photographer. He's allegedly called Hilaria a female dog and a prostitute, my words, not theirs, in the past, which is why Alec immediately got so angry. Baldwin is known for his lack of anger management. So when a police officer couldn't calm down the actors, reinforcements were called. The additional officers arrived with sirens blazing, according to TMZ. Should we listen to the news piece?
One of the 8 benches, you could hear us.
Oh, I think it's going to be 25 minutes. All right, maybe that's something else, guys. Anyway, that's the gist of that. So let me try to move forward as I can, but there's an interesting lawsuit against Hilaria Baldwin around this time, where someone who took her class accused her of, he got injured because he said it was like a really crowded class, and I was made to do handstands, and I flew through a glass, some plate of glass. In 2014, Alec Bald erupted at a paparazzi who approached for photographs in a public park area. Oh, this is it. Oh, maybe they didn't miss it. I just have it as September and not this writer has it earlier. Gawker reports that Jeffrey Epstein's book, unless it's a different one. This may be a different one. Gawker reports that Jeffrey Epstein's address book has a listing for Alec Baldwin, among many other celebrities. And in 2015, Alec, Hilaria, and Carmen are moved to Coach with those dirty, poor people on a Delta flight. And Baldwin was overheard trashing Delta. This is a lot of the things that I've already covered. Baldwin defends Tom Cruise from allegations related to abuses of Scientology. Baldwin appears on Howard Stern and talks about how he thought Scientology helped Cruise navigate his immense celebrity. I mean, how disgusting. And in 2016, the New Yorker published a lengthy piece on Harvey Levin, the TMZ founder, and one of Baldwin's arch enemies. Baldwin is quoted in the piece on his hatred for Levin and floored language. I would imagine that Levin relishes needling Baldwin on some level because Baldwin is such an a-hole and because of his homophobic tirades. Here's Baldwin's quote on Levin. There was a time when my greatest wish was to stab Harvey Levin with a rusty implement and watch his entrails go running down my forearm. In some Maccabean stance, I want him to die in my arms while looking into my eyes, and I want him to say, "Oh, Harvey, you thoughtless little pig." Baldwin added, "He's a festering boil on the anus of the American media." Isn't that interesting? Alex screams at a photographer for taking photos of his wife, 2016. It just goes on and on and on and on and on. I may have to, but it goes into, when was Hilaria exposed? She released her book about her 5 principles for a fit body, health, and mind in 2016. 2017, Baldwin settled a lawsuit over a fake painting an art studio sold him. In a bizarre video posted online, a fan asked Baldwin for a photo, and Baldwin tells the man, who is African-American, to stay black. Okay, interesting. Baldwin equates his first comments about his friend, the director James Toback, who has been accused by over 300 women of SA or S harassment. Baldwin had earlier trashed the writer of the Toback story, Kayla Cobb, on Twitter, but had otherwise been silent on the allegations until commenting to the LA Times. Baldwin denied ever talking to Toback about his sex life, so he appeared to be shirking any sort of guilty knowledge or responsibility. Baldwin acknowledged later in the interview that he knew Toback hit on a lot of women in a vague way. Baldwin deflected in a follow-up question, saying that Trump was a predator and speculated of the same type, and speculated that people like Toback may be targeted because the Me Too movement could not bring down the ultimate evil that is Trump. Wow, that you have to twist your mind into a pretzel to get into that logic. He pulled out of an acting role in 2018. Oh, God. And Baldwin is roasted in 2018. And in 2021, in 2020, Baldwin, his wife, Hilaria Baldwin's fake Spanish heritage is revealed. And in 2021, October 21, the Rush shooting happens. Let's take a look at, one second. Hold, please. Just want to show you this interesting little video about, and it's on from Entertainment Tonight, and it shows the beginning, that really disturbing video that was shown in court of the first responders. I want to fast forward past that. But Hilaria, and making motions in court with her hand over her heart, very dramatic. And it talks, and it shares an interview with Gloria Allred. So let's check it out.
During day 1 of testimony, Alec watched intently and at times took notes as chilling footage of paramedics trying to resuscitate slain.
Hold on one second. I thought here it is. Sorry, guys.
A hand over her heart. As for Alec, he sat solemn and stone-faced.
Are you filming your reality show here?
Unlike yesterday, the Baldwins arrived without the youngest of their 7 children. A source tells ET their upcoming TLC reality show is not filming them during the 8-day trial. I'm joined by attorney Gloria Allred, who is representing several family members of Halyna Hutchins. Gloria, what do you make of the Baldwins announcing a reality show just before trial and then showing up to the courthouse with their youngest child?
It appears to be a very cynical, calculated public relations move to potentially impact the jury.
Do you think Alec is using his children as a prop?
If he plans to make this part of his reality show and to bring the baby and show the baby to the press, I think it's sick.
So I thought that was pretty interesting. Not that I'm such a fan of Gloria Allred, but the other thing I wanted to show was Alec Baldwin, when it looked like it was unclear whether he was going to go to trial for these charges they were asking for his phone. He did this bizarre video with a Splenda packet where he talked about how a stranger gave him a Splenda packet and it was so incredibly complimentary. And he was going to savor it forever, and then he lost it, and then his neighbor found it. And I just wanted to show this because it's so bizarre. And it lives in perpetuity on Reddit. Thank God.
House, my friend David's house this morning. He came out with his daughter, who's dear friends with my daughter, Carmen, and he had a very unusual countenance to him. And he and his daughter proceeded to tell me a story that their neighbor, who lives 2 doors down from them, went to a store, like a takeout food place, Organic Crush, out east here, and the woman who's their neighbor, she found this. I can't. She found the Splenda packet. She found the Splenda packet.
And so what was so interesting about the Splenda packet is the handwriting on it. Hilaria Baldwin had showed some really insensitive pictures with that Alec Baldwin had drawn, and of him saying, "I'm dead, you killed me," and one was supposed to be him and one was supposed to be Hilaria right after this tragic shooting, Alec Baldwin's tragic shooting of Halyna Hutchins. It was so insensitive, one of the worst moments. And the handwriting is exactly the same as on this Splenda packet. And the drawing is very similar too. And the theory is that he wrote this himself, meaning he's sharing this idea that good people still support me and love me and care about me. And they send me little doodads and say, "Thanks for the laugh, good sir." That's one of the things that I remember that was on the Splenda packet. And he treasures his support from good people, not hateful people, not January 6 people. Good people believe in his innocence.
You are 100% true. Thanks for the laughs, good sir. Cheers to a new year. Love you. It's the Splenda packet. Does this mean 2022 is going to be a good year? Wouldn't that be nice? Anyway, that is nothing short of a miracle. I'm going to find out his neighbor's name and I'm going to send her a gift. I mean, can you believe something as silly as this has that much value? I'm putting it in pockets now where I'll never lose it again. But anyway, oh my God. Oh my God. That's amazing. That's a miracle. One other quick note, any suggestion that I am not complying with requests or orders or demands or search warrants about my phone, that's bullshit. That's a lie. This is a process where one state makes the request of another state. Someone from another state from another state can't come to you and say, give me your phone, give me this, give me that. They can't do that. They've got to go through the state you live in. That is a process that takes time. They have to specify what exactly they want. You can't just go through your phone and take, your photos or your love letters to your wife or what have you. I really don't know, but but of course, we are 1,000% going to comply with all that. We're perfectly fine with that. And but the as I always say, consider the source. The people that tell you that. Sidney Poitier died. He's on the cover of the Daily News, and the cover of the Post has something else. Sidney Poitier, one of the icons of this business, one of the kings, movie royalty, dies, and on the cover of the Post they have other lies and bullshit and nonsense. The best way, the only way we can honor the death of Halyna Hutchins is to find out the truth. That's what I'm working toward, insisting on, demanding that the organizations involved in this investigation do everything in their power to find out what really happened. That's all that matters. The best way to honor the death of Halyna Hutchins is to find out the truth. And any suggestion that we're not complying, myself and any lawyers I'm working with or what have you, is a lie. It's a lie. We're gonna, as soon as we go through this process, then by all means we will comply. But but I have no worries about that. That's all going to work itself out, regardless of what they say in these right-wing rag sheets and people who are all about hate. But setting aside all the hate, setting aside all the January 6th of it all, there it is.
There it is, guys, the Splenda packet. And I think that's a good place to end it for today. The Splendid packet. Good people who aren't hateful and January 6th like. You support him. Support his Splenda packet, which was given to him by a young girl, which is another part of the story that has been skeptically looked at. It wasn't given by like a middle-aged woman like myself, but a young girl, young attractive girl is his key audience. So that's what I have for today. Hopefully we will talk more about what happened in court. Very long cross-examination.
You're attractive too.
I'm attractive. Thank you, honey. Very long cross-examination today. And I think really what the state is doing is they're really trying to disprove the defense's case that it was a terrible custody. And I'm finding it not very interesting. What was more interesting to me was when the jury was out, they had meeting about what was coming in. And of course, what's coming in is Alec Baldwin's phone call to Hilaria, where he's saying, come out. Well, you have to use these plane tickets or else it will go to waste. It's all paid for. We'll have such a good time. He's talking about having a good time with his wife after this tragedy. And the reason it could come in is because the defense said that Alec Baldwin was so broken up. And in the opening, they said if he could go back and save Halyna, he would, which is so untrue. Everybody moved to help or moved to save themselves. Alec Baldwin froze, just sat there, and then walked out and had a cigarette. That by what's come out in trial. So remember that. I'm just going to love to see how this is. Carrie Morrissey and Prosecutor Johnson are doing an awesome job, I think. I wasn't a fan of Carrie Morrissey, she seems a little bit toned down in this trial. But I think she's doing an awesome job up against some really powerful and pricey lawyers. So have a great night, everyone. Please like this episode, subscribe to the channel, share this episode, follow me on social media, on Facebook, X, at Roberta Glass Pod, and leave me a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, and I'll be back tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern. Have a great night, everybody. Oh no, I'm off.